Should I turn? Now? Hold on. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another episode of Lions Latest, where we go through the latest Detroit Lions news. We have a few things to talk about today, so let's get it started.
Way up, we're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Welcome everybody to a video. Glad you guys are here. Yes, we're back to talk about some Detroit Lions news. Now, unfortunately, we have some bad news to report today. We have some other things to talk about, but we do have some bad news. Before we get into that news, the question of the day, let me hear your answers in the comment section below. Here's the question of the day. You are an NFL player. What position are you playing and what number are you choosing? We just got the number reveal from the Detroit Lions. You go check out yesterday's video if you guys want to see that. But what number are you choosing if you're an NFL player? And also, what position are you playing? Are you playing punter? Are you the next Jack Fox? Kicker? Usually only get talked about when you're missing kicks, unless it's like a game winner. So I don't know if you really want to be a kicker. There's a lot of pressure on those dudes. Same thing with a punter, specifically a punter, right? Punters, long snappers. Long snappers, I feel for you guys because no one talks about you unless you mess up. It's unfortunate, but that happens. So maybe not choosing those positions. I don't know, but I feel for those guys. Respect. A lot of respect for guys like Dom Muhlbach. Hey, he's been doing this for a long time. Dom Muhlbach needs some love, okay? Well, I don't know how we got to this, but Dom Muhlbach needs some love. Sorry, we got some Detroit Lions news that we need to talk about today. Let's address the unfortunate news first. You really hate to hear this. We got this news, honestly, a little while ago because I think this went down yesterday, but we are here to report it today. And this is that defensive lineman out of Michigan State University. He was a UDFA back in 2016. Joelle Heath, who was signed to a futures contract back in February, is out for the season. He suffered a torn ACL in drills. He was going through bag drills. He went down, and apparently he tore his ACL, and he is now out for the season. This is not the kind of news that you want to hear, of course. I mean, we are so early into the offseason workouts. We're just into OTAs right now. The first week of OTAs, I should add. And this is the news that we get. This is super unfortunate. You really hate to hear stuff like this, especially this serious, this early in the offseason. Like, it's one thing to have an injury. It's another thing to be, like, told, hey, you're out for the year. You're just a week into workouts. Like, that's just awful. That is completely awful, man. Especially guys like Joelle Heath. You know, he's doing everything he can to try to make a roster, and this is the news that he gets. This is just awful news for Joelle. I feel really bad here. It's a very similar situation we had last year with Jayshon Cornell. We draft Cornell in the 7th round. He comes in an off-season workouts. I don't remember exactly when it was, but he was, injured, out for the season. So, I mean, it's really unfortunate to hear news like this, specifically for a guy like Joelle Heath. Heath has been around the league a little bit. He's played with the Texans. He's played with the Broncos. He's really just trying to find his footing, honestly, in the NFL. Back with Michigan State, he started in 24 games. He had over 10 tackles for loss. He had 4.5 sacks. 290 pounds, 6'5". I mean, it was a 3-4 scheme fit on a futures contract. There was no guarantees that he was going to make the team, but this is not how you want to see it go down. You want to see competition. The good thing is, on the defensive line, the Lions definitely have depth. It is very early, so if you have to adjust anything, you could always bring new players in if you have to. Some super unfortunate news for Joelle Heath that we have today. I'm sorry to start you guys off with that news, but I mean, that's what happened, so I have to report it. Now, I do want to talk about OTAs a little bit here because Dan Campbell kind of laid out the schedule for the Detroit Lions. Yesterday, we talked about how the training camp period will begin July 27th for the NFL. Well, Dan Campbell said this is how the OTAs are going to go, and I guess, different NFL teams are doing this differently based on how the players feel, if they want it short in practice, and Dan Campbell said no player has told me he wants it shorter. He said they all just want to be here. So Dan Campbell has it planned like this. OTAs, the first week finished today. Of course, today is Thursday. This was the last day of the first week of OTAs. He said next week they're going to have OTAs as well, organized team activities. A week from then, the 3rd week will be minicamp, and then the 4th week will be basically just an extra week for rookies, vets, if they want to come in and put even more work in. And everybody, wants to be there. So must be a very good environment the Lions are having. We saw, the clip of the highlights where Penei Sewell's throwing some passes, Lee McNeil's throwing some passes. All right, I see. I mean, you're getting guys involved. They're having fun out there. And that's what it's all about, man. It's all about having fun, but also competing. We should continue to get some looks at some of these new players, older players, veterans. We should continue to get some notes on these guys. But that's kind of how the schedule is laying out for Dan Campbell. Now, Campbell did talk about the first week of OTAs, and he touched on a couple of players that I wanted to bring up specifically. First off, Jared Goff. Didn't go super into detail with this. Of course, this is is really his first impressions of Jared Goff in person. And he said, I can tell you what, he throws a pretty ball, man. Now, when we saw the highlights, I mean, there really wasn't much. There was a lot of like really short passes from Jared Goff, but he says he throws a pretty ball. And basically, Dan Campbell, he said, look, we're throwing the entire system at him right now. Like, we're going through the whole system. Like I said, next week is OTAs again. The third week is minicamp. They're throwing the system at him right now. It's going to be a crash course. These veterans, you know, they're obviously trying to take in a whole new system. The rookies, the players out of college, this is completely new to them. So they're throwing it at him now very early. They're just like, hey, we're just going to go through this. You're going to mess up. There's going to be tons of bumps, but, you know, we got a lot of time to fix it. So it's going to be messy. Maybe not going to be the prettiest thing to kind of start throwing this at you now, but let's just get this thing started because it is a completely new system for all of these players to learn. So they're throwing at it right now. He calls it a crash course, and that's what the Detroit Lions are doing with their playbook. So they're going for it right now, and obviously there's going to be mistakes, but it's early in the offseason, so, you know, things will get better. Touched on Penei Sewell, and of course, you know, we want to hear about Penei Sewell. We got to hear about the first pick in the draft. He stated that Penei Sewell looks like a rookie. He said Penei Sewell's a big guy, but when he stood next to Taylor Decker, he was like, man, he don't look as big because Taylor Decker's a big dude. Like, we got some big old linemen, but he's like, I mean, Penei Sewell is just a big human. We know Penei Sewell's a really big guy, 6'5", 330. I mean, he's a giant. But that just shows you how big guys like Taylor Decker are. I mean, we got some big dudes on that offensive line. Big V. I mean, he's sitting next to Big V, and Big V kind of makes him look small, and that's crazy. We got some big guys on that offensive line. Penei Sewell looks like a rookie. Now, of course, it's still early, right? He's only seen rookie minicamp, which he wasn't in because of COVID. So he's only seen him through OTAs. There hasn't been a lot of work that he's seen with Penei Sewell. Penei Sewell's probably pretty rusty, I would believe. I mean, I'm sure he was working out in 2020, but he didn't play in 2020. So it's kind of a long break for Penei Sewell. I'm sure he's a little rusty. I'm sure he does look like a rookie. You know, you expect that. You're going to see it during the season as well. You're going to see rookie moments. They're like, okay, yeah, he's a rookie, right? I mean, that's stuff that you expect from any pick in the draft, any UDFA. They're rookies, right? They're going to make mistakes. Said he looks like a rookie, but he is talented, he's hungry, and he's aggressive. So that's awesome. I mean, those are the three things you want to hear. We know he's very talented. We've seen him. The guy's hungry and he's aggressive, kind of bringing that great mentality. He said that he wants the offensive line and really the interior defensive line to do everything together, to work together. When he's on the line, he's hearing the calls from Frank Ragnow. He's next to the right guard, which is Big V. I mean, you're kind of working together, not necessarily individual drills, but when you're together, he said that's great. It's great having all the guys together working as one, kind of working as a unit like they're going to be during the season. We anticipate Penei Sewell will be the starting right tackle, especially after some photos that we've seen. So it is an opportunity for these guys to kind of get some of that chemistry together. And after the offseason, then of course we'll start to get into training camp. We're going to get into things like that. By the time we're in July, I mean, it's like let's get this thing popping, right? I mean, it's still early. People are knocking rust off. But once again, in July, like, let's get this thing rolling. Now, the Detroit Lions also reported some news very recently. This is some very recent news. Can we get like an alarm sound or something like that? I don't know. Recent news, the Detroit Lions are bringing in running back Todd Gurley.
So many people.
Recent Detroit Lions news is that the Lions are bringing in running back Todd Gurley for a visit or a workout. So Todd Gurley is coming into Detroit for a little bit of a visit. Of course, Todd Gurley will be getting a physical, so the Lions will get to see how he looks like in terms of health right now. Possibility that the Lions could sign Todd Gurley. It's not that the Lions have signed Todd Gurley. They're just bringing him in for a visit, okay? I want to make that clear. The Lions have not signed him to bring him in for a visit. ESPN recently predicted that he would sign with the Kansas City Chiefs on a one-year, $1.1 million deal, which is just crazy to think at how high this guy was looked at. I mean, just a few years ago, looked at as one of the best players in the game, and all of a sudden we're talking $1.1 million. But let's just start right there. I mean, again, it would fit kind of the approach of a lot of the Lions free agency. One-year deal, cheap contract, kind of a prove-it deal. You got an opportunity to get paid next season, so this is the year where you go and just kind of ball out, right? You're not locked into anything. If it's a bad year, that stinks. But at the same time, you're not locked into a big contract here. Kind of what the Lions have done all offseason with all their free agency deals, really aside from guys like re-signing Romeo Okwara and also Jamal Williams. Pretty much all their deals have been one-year deals like that. So he would fit right into that category for the Detroit Lions. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh, the Lions got some running back depth, though. Like, why would they do this? They do. They have Jamar Jefferson. They draft him in the 7th round. Of course, we have Jamal and Swift to be the 1 and the 2. But you got Jamar Jefferson. UDFAs, you signed Raheem Boyd. You signed Dedrick Mills. So there is some depth here. Now, they have got to see those 3 guys. They've seen Dedrick Mills. They've seen Jamar Jefferson. They've seen Raheem Boyd a little bit more than some of the other guys because they were also there in rookie minicamp. And let's be real with ourselves. Offensively, the Lions' strength of the team is not the receivers. It probably won't be the passing game unless the run game is there. The strength is the offensive line right now and the running back position. And this far into the offseason, this early into the offseason, I should say, not a bad idea to do something like this, because it's not like I'm doing it a week before the season and I'm panicking and I'm signing him like he's going to play. It's okay. You're going to go through this with all these other players before we get too far into everything, and you're going to compete. You're going to battle. And if you win this role, cool. If not, all right, we'll cut our losses. But you're going to battle. You're going to compete for the spot. We're not going to just do it right before the season and be like, okay, hey, we're signing you. We don't really know what the heck you looked like during the offseason, but we're signing you, so you're going to be on the team. You didn't get to compete with any of these guys. Everybody deserves a fair shot to compete, and the earlier you do it into the training, the earlier you do it, I think the more fair it is for everybody, feeling how he compares directly in person to Jermar Jefferson, to Raheem Boyd. How does he compare to these guys in person versus right before the season we sign him, we're just going based off what we think he looks like? Kind of like what happened with Adrian Peterson last season, kind of a mess. Doing it early, you're not really panicking. You're like, okay, let's just see what he looks like. Especially if it's that cheap of a deal. The Lions haven't made a decision on any of these young players yet, but it is an opportunity to, again, add some more competition for the Lions, and it could open up some things offensively that you can do. Plus, it gives Jared Goff a very familiar face. Todd Gurley was with the LA Rams 2016 through 2019, and it was a very big weapon for that offense. He was one of the top rushers in the NFL during that time, and also, one year, he led the Rams team in receptions. He was a huge part of that offense, and it's someone that Jared Goff has a very good connection with. He went to him over and over and over again. So it would be a very familiar face in the backfield for him if he was signed to the roster. And again, if it's a 1.1, like something like that kind of deal, I mean, there's really no hurt done. It's kind of the same thing we talked about Try Turner. Try Turner, though, could be looking at more money than that. And of course, if it's a one-year deal, you know, you're pretty much going to lose the money if you cut them. But at the same time, 1.1 million. What you're thinking, I have the same mindset of Todd Gurley that a lot of people do, is that Todd Gurley, we know he's only 26 years old, but he's dealt with some injuries, right? He's had the torn ACL. He also has had the knee issue that's really just kind of been bothering him, coming up again. He's had some issues injury-wise, and recently he hasn't been the same player, and that's why he's a free agent. You look at him with the Falcons last season when he got that one-year deal from Atlanta, and he wasn't that great. He had just under 200 carries, which was the lowest of his career, and statistically it wasn't that great. He averaged 3.5 yards per carry, under 700 yards rushing at 678, and he had 9 touchdowns, which is pretty good. 25 receptions on 35 targets. He had 4 drops last season. So statistically speaking, obviously he wasn't that great. Now, he is 6'1", 224. He would be the biggest running back, actual running back, on our roster if we signed him. It kind of sounds weird, but he would be. He'd actually be a little bit bigger than Dedrick Mills as well. Give you a little bit of size. But then I wanted to go back and watch some of the film. All right, I got to watch some of the film because the numbers are great. I love it. You know, you look at the numbers. Oh, he was really good this year, that year, not so much. But then you watch some of the film and you kind of get some more ideas of why what happened may have actually happened. And of course, injuries are a very important factor here. But again, that's just guys that goes into what the Lions have done. They signed guys that have injuries. You know, you look at Quentin Dunbar, you look at Tyrell Williams, guys, they dealt with injuries, but they're coming back. You know, if they could be healthy, this is a big opportunity. They got to play through it. They got to find a way to go get paid this next offseason when the salary cap goes back up. It's an opportunity. They're all fighting for spots. They're all fighting for playing time. So a lot of guys we signed are coming off injuries. And Todd Gurley has had some injuries. But I did notice that he hasn't missed tons of time. He's dealt with some injuries, but for the most part, he plays in pretty much every game that this team plays in. So he's dealt with some things, but that doesn't keep him off the field. He plays through it. So I got to give some respect there. Why his struggles recently may be happening. Not completely, but a little bit why, even past just simply the injuries. Now, if we sign him, of course, we're going to dive into the film, which would be really cool to dive into that film. So I kind of hope we do, just so I can dive into the film on it. I know it's kind of like, oh, I just kind of want to. I kind of want to do a film video on Todd Gurley, but I don't want to do it if we don't sign him. However, I did watch some film, and I have some ideas here. Todd Gurley's really never been a burning running back. He ran a 4.52 coming out of the draft. He was never extremely fast. I never really got his official 10-yard split time, so I don't know what that is, but his burst isn't that great. He's never been that fast of a running back. So when you watch him last season, you're probably like, man, he doesn't look that quick. He's really never been that quick of a running back. He's a pretty big running back, and that has exceptional vision, really good contact balance, and he's pretty good with his change of direction. When you watch him play, that's kind of what he goes with. And with the LA Rams, he was obviously fantastic with the LA Rams. I mean, he was averaging 4.7 yards per carry, 4.9 yards per carry. But there was a couple of things going on there with the LA Rams. They had one of the best offensive lines in the league his 2 best years. In 2017 and 2018, when he was a Pro Bowl, All-Pro running back, they had the 6th ranked offensive line in each of those 2 years by Pro Football Focus. Obviously, that helps when you have a good offensive line. Kept him from getting hit early in the play. Also, they were a zone rushing scheme. And when you watch him, he really fit into that well because zone rushing scheme, we know it's all about vision. Setting up holes, setting up blockers, receivers, cut back lanes, seeing where you're going. If you have really good vision, you can make it work in a zone rushing scheme. You don't have to be super fast. You don't got to be a burner, but you got to be able to see where you're going. Very similar to what we saw with Jermar Jefferson at Oregon State. He wasn't a burner by any stretch of the imagination, but the guy had exceptional vision, good contact balance, and because of that, he was able to put up really good numbers consistently against the competition that he went against because he fit that kind of scheme. And that's what you notice back with the Rams is they did that a ton. And they were creative with him. They got him involved on jet sweeps. They got him to the outside. But he was never that fast, not super shifty. But he just had really good vision, good contact balance. And he had a little bit of speed. I mean, it wasn't like he was slow. He had a little bit of speed, right? Got a little bit of edge speed. But he was a pretty strong running back. He breaks a lot of tackles. Even last season, he had 19 broken tackles, which was more than he had in 2019. 19 broken tackles last season, averaging only 3.5 yards per carry. Statistically, here's a big difference. Go back to 2018. The guy averaged 2.5 yards before contact. So before he was touched, on average, he was picking up 2.5 yards, which allowed him to build up some speed. I think some of that was scheme, some of that was better offensive line. Atlanta's offensive line last season ranked 21st in the league, and he was only getting 1.7 yards before contact. Huge difference there. Getting hit earlier, the offensive line isn't playing as well. So when I watched him play at Atlanta and I watched him play at the Rams, I noticed the scheme differences there, but it didn't look like, okay, this looks like a completely different player to me. He did look a tad quicker at the Rams, I will say that, but I mean, he looked very similar, really good vision. He had good vision with Atlanta too. It's just he was getting hit in the backfield more often. He wasn't able to build up that speed. He wasn't getting much space, getting through holes without getting touched. It allowed him to build up some speed, build up some power. And like I said, he's always broke tackles. He broke tackles with the Atlanta Falcons, but when you're, getting hit 1 yard into the play, that's a very big problem. So for the Detroit Lions, what they have done with their offensive line, building their offensive line, this is a player, not to say he's going to be the old Todd Gurley if we sign him, but he could get back a little bit to close to around 4 yards per carry. Another important note here is that Todd Gurley has never not been a bell cow, basically. Last year, he had under 200 carries for the first time in his career. He's always been a heavy, high production type of running back. And obviously, he's dealt with some injuries. Those two things don't kind of go together that well. So even last season, we don't have over 200 carries. He still was kind of like their bell cow running back with Brian Hill being the number 2. He was having a really nice season. This would be much different for Todd Gurley because if he was signed to Detroit, I would probably think that he's not, your top running back. I think that he would be behind Swift, probably be behind Joelle. I mean, he would mix into that group with Jermar Jefferson. I don't know where he would fall in that group, but there's no doubt he would not be the bell cow running back. He wouldn't be. But he also has the ability to play on all 3 downs. Because of his size and power, he can play in goal line situations. He does have some pass catching ability, even though his drops have shown up. When you get that many targets, it's going to happen. But pretty good hands. Honestly, pretty good hands, except for the last couple of years, but pretty good hands before that. And like I said, he led the team 1 year in receptions for Jared Goff. And also, he's a really good pass blocker. Back in 2018, he didn't miss a single block. He's a good pass blocker. So he can play in any situation, which allows him to be a guy that you can kind of just plug in and out. Doesn't have to be that bell cow that he's always been. It'll keep him fresh. It can keep him healthy. And he can kind of just mix in and play different downs for the Detroit Lions. So I think that's interesting. Plus, it gives you some depth. It gives you a familiar face for Jared Goff. It gives him some comfortability there. And also an interesting note is if you look at his stats back with the Rams, when he ran well, Malcolm Brown pretty much ran well. So for them, the offensive line being good, the scheme fit, it was about vision. Malcolm Brown has vision. I watched him this offseason. Not super exciting, not super flashy, but he's got vision. Same thing that Todd Gurley has. I don't think Todd Gurley is just washed up because I don't think you can if you look at the stats, you could say that he is, but I think when you watch him play, you can see that there's a lot of things still there within his game, but you're going to have to help him a little bit. I think less of a role, better offensive line than Atlanta had, and also I think a pretty good scheme fit here. It could, get him back a little bit. He wouldn't be the bell cow. He would mix in. I don't even know if he'd make the team. It'd be good competition, though. So if the Lions sign him, honestly, wouldn't be shocked because he does have that connection with Jared Goff. He's had it for years. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Lions try to do this, especially if it's that cheap a contract. If it's $1.1 million, worst case, if he cut him, you lose $1 million. Like, okay, that stinks, right? You don't want to lose money, but, I mean, that's the worst case for real. I can see the Lions giving a shot here. Honestly, before maybe they gave a guy like Try Turner a shot just because of the connections with Todd Gurley. So I'm open to this kind of signing as well. I do like Jermar Jefferson. I kind of like the idea of Raheem Boyd as well. I'm not sure if I'm sold on Dedrick Mills, but I mean, I like what we have with the running back group. But this far into the offseason, I have no issues bringing in competition. It's not like we're a week away from the season. We are months away from the season. Bring in the competition now. Let him play it out. Let's see who takes what role. And of course, if Todd Gurley doesn't win the role, you cut him, right? You just figure out who it is. But the more competition, honestly, the better. I felt like he looked a little bit quicker and faster with the LA Rams. But no, he's a bigger running back. You have a little bit of longer speed, a little bit taller, longer strides. He looked like more of a build-up speed type of guy. You're going to hit in the backfield. you're going to look slow because, you can't build up any of that speed. So with his size, a zone scheme, vision, cut up field, build up some of that speed, you got some power. Clearly, he has the size to do it because he's been holding that bell cow roll down for a little while. This may be a time for it just to be like, hey, let's take a break from that big roll and let's just let you be, kind of a rotational piece, assuming he made the team. How the physical goes. Does he look healthy? Does he look like he can run? How does he feel about his body personally? If he feels healthy, this is something you can take a shot on. If not, if you're concerned, yeah, no, don't do it. But, that's what it's going to come down to. They'll have to check that out and see how they see. There in his game, he could be a successful running back in the league. And I think with a smaller role, those injuries may not show up as much, and that could be very beneficial for him because when Atlanta brought him in, they were looking at him to be the top running back, and it's like, this guy does not need that role. A top 10 draft pick, ask him to be a bell cow, it makes sense. But when you're signing him to a $1.5 million deal years later, at that point, you don't need him to do that. He's been through it. He needs to have a lighter role. And now that Joelle Heath is out for the season, it could open up that spot for the Detroit Lions to bring someone else in. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.